everyone, today we are talking about whether or not it's okay to approach women in 2021. This is a bit of a hot topic at the moment, and I have had a few men email into me questioning whether or not they're creepy for approaching women. Now, I have worked as a matchmaker and dating coach for a couple of years now, and I have done a little bit of work on approach work with companies that ethically approach women. Now, what I will say is I am no expert in pickup or approaching women in general. I am a woman, however, and I've been approached many, many times and definitely felt really, really awkward within those situations. So whilst I do work with both men and women that is about being approachable and also approaching people, it is definitely not the bulk of what I do, and I am absolutely not a pickup artist. I generally don't really agree with pickup because it can be used in a way that is quite unethical and not very female friendly. Obviously, as a woman, I am quite female friendly, but I also am not a man hater. So I want to be able to help men approach women in a way that is not creepy. So, can you approach women in 2021? I do think you can approach women in 2021, but there are, of course, many, many little exceptions to every rule, and I'd like to chat about that a little bit today. I've been in so many situations where I've been approached by a man and I've been like really okay with it, and then I've been in situations where I've been approached by a man and I've just been thinking, why can't this guy like leave? I've told him I've got a boyfriend and he's still here. He doesn't seem to care. He doesn't seem to have any morals. He doesn't seem to respect me. He doesn't seem to respect my relationship. So we don't want to be that guy. And of course, if you're thinking, am I that creepy guy? You're probably really trying to not be that guy as well. It's almost like when you read something like the psychopath test or anything about psychopaths and you begin to question, am I a psychopath? If you're questioning whether you're a creepy guy and are worried that you might be, the chances are that you're either not a creepy guy or that you're at the very least empathetic, care about what women think, and not completely unself-aware or switched off from what's actually going on in the world. I've been avoiding covering this topic because I find it a really contentious subject. But then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to do the video, I'm going to chat about it. And if people disagree with me, then okay. It's like it doesn't really matter, does it? I actually thought for a long time that my experience with men was different to other women, and that I had been approached more than the average woman, and that I'd experienced dodgier characters than other women as well. Now, this is not because I think I'm some sort of supermodel woman or anything like that, but it's because I spent many years working in casinos, which are male-heavy, male-dominated areas, and also working night shifts, taking night buses home on like pretty much every day of the week. So I would always encounter more like drunk guys on buses and things like that. However, recently, I've started to question that, and I actually think it's a broader problem than just I'm the exception to the rule. I actually think that based on the whole situation with Sarah Everard, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, a lady was murdered in London I don't know if it's weeks or months, like not long ago, and it sort of sparked a conversation here in the UK about men and their behavior. And I'd always thought it was like I'd been frightened many times by men on transport, on traveling home, but I'd really thought it was a bit of a me thing, that I was perhaps a bit more sensitive, and also I put myself into those situations, which, let's be honest, we should be able to take a bus at any hour of the day and not be harassed, right? Like, I think we all could agree with that. And I really stand by the thought of, it is not all men. I don't think it's all men, but I promise you it's all women. I promise you it is all women. I don't know a woman who hasn't been harassed, and I'm not saying, anyway, I start crying. Obviously a bit passionate about this one. So anyway, when is it not creepy and when is it creepy? So this is for men who want to not be that creepy guy, but they still want to be able to approach women. I would definitely be mindful of what your intention is. approaching a woman, labeling her out of 10 in your head and all of that stuff, it's going to give out more of a creepy vibe than someone who's just curious to get to know somebody. The first thing that I would suggest for a guy to do is to not be focused so much on outcomes. I notice a lot with like pickup artists, of what I've read, it's often like a case of like closing, getting a phone number, or, you know, getting rid of the boyfriend if they've got a boyfriend, and all of these sort of things where it's like results orientated, which I understand that some of us are very, very goal orientated and results orientated, and we need like a tangible thing that's happened within an interaction for us to be like, yeah, that was successful. However, I don't think you should go in with that intention, because it makes you seem needier, it makes you not vet her at all, and it also puts a lot of pressure on the situation, and women pick up on pressure. So I would say, if you do approach a woman, go in thinking, you know, you might be thinking, she's super hot, I want to approach her, but also bear in mind that it doesn't matter if it falls apart, and you're better off removing yourself from a situation than like doggedly trying to get the goal of getting the phone number, because when you're doing that, that is when you'll become creepy. I'd also like you to consider the setting that you're in. There are loads of people out there that say to people, you can approach a woman anywhere. Sort of you can, but you sort of can't, you know? Like, if a woman is on her own at 3 in the morning, and yeah, you might be going, well, why is she on her own at 3 a.m. in the morning? Because she's a woman who's an independent person who's allowed to go out. She might have to work at night, you know, whatever the reason, there's no justification for like, well, I can approach her, she's chosen to be out at this time, blah, blah, blah. Don't approach a woman who is on her own late at night. I just wouldn't do it. Unless she's like waving at you, you know, like really obviously, really open, and you know, there's loads of people around. But generally speaking, if you're on a quiet street, she's on her own, you're a bloke, I'm really sorry, but because you're stronger than a woman, she might see you as a threat. Like, it's just how we're programmed, because that kept us alive in the past. Another tip that I have for men is to never say to a woman, like, where are you going, if you're like on a public transport and it's late at night. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule. It might make sense within the context of that conversation. She might be super relaxed and all of that, but leading with, oh, where are you off to? Where are you off to, love? Love, don't say love. It's going to make her feel uncomfortable. The first thing I would think would be like, oh, why does he want to know that? Does he want to come with me? I had a guy who tried to follow me home. I've been on a bus and this guy tried to come home with me. He chatted to me and I'd been very polite. This is another thing, women can be sometimes polite because they don't want to upset you. And so we have to be careful. It's like, he was like, I'm gonna come back to yours. I was like, no, you're not. And he was like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna get off here with you. And I lost it. It was because I was frightened, but like a really extreme reaction is usually because she's scared. Another one is like when guys like go in and they're like, I need to break the touch barrier. And it becomes like part of the goal is to break the touch barrier. It's like, well, it's natural sometimes to touch someone, touch them on the arm, never on the arse. Don't break the touch barrier unless the conversation's very flirtatious, you're close together, it's all leading in the right direction. Don't just be like, right, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna talk to her, I've got to break the touch barrier. That is when you become quite creepy. Plus it's 2021, remember, and touching people is not the vibe at the moment. If you do touch someone, you know, like, it might be okay, it might be, but if in doubt, just don't touch people, because there's a pandemic out there, and read her body language. I watched this pickup artist on YouTube like a long time ago actually, and he approached this woman, and I mean, he held her hand and she didn't move away, and he was all, you know, oh, this was great. Did you notice how she didn't pull away? She was really enjoying the conversation. And I was watching, I was like, nah, I don't think so. From my perception of it, and from being a woman and thinking, how does it feel to be a woman in this particular spot where you're very clearly getting chatted up? She was like holding his hand, and she didn't pull away, and yeah, her body language, the rest of her body language was like saying like, please God, somebody help me. Like, her legs were crossed, her arms were crossed. She was quite quiet in the conversation. She was looking around, you know, like he's missing. He's just gone for like what he wants to see. He wanted to be like, guys, look, she held my hand. It's like, just because she's not moving away doesn't mean that she's also like compliant in what's going on. She might be stood there thinking, what is this guy doing? What is going on? Why is he holding my hand? This is so weird. I've never stood and held a stranger's hand like this before. Like, what is next? What's he gonna hold next? What's he gonna touch next? What do I do? I don't want to upset him. How do I get out of this? Like, what I'm gonna do? Like, that is potentially what was going through that poor girl's head as she held the hand. And bless that guy, he really believed that she was happy with the situation. He had missed her body language. So be mindful of body language and be mindful of holding a person's hand for a long period, because it's generally not normal. I would also be mindful about approaching women who are very, very intoxicated, and also be mindful of when you're very intoxicated. Now, the latter is actually much more difficult because, of course, when we're drunk, our inhibitions are lowered and we're much more likely to be like, I am the man, I'm going to approach, I'm the sexiest guy in this joint, and suddenly you've gone from being to being like, well, thinking that you're like some Casanova type, when actually you're just like a drunk, sweaty guy in a nightclub running around after women in a way that you wouldn't normally. If you're that guy, I would say definitely work towards being able to approach women when you're sober, because I mean, a good look on anybody. I guess if you're both like tipsy, it might be okay, or if you're just, you know, couple of drinks, but really, really drunk guys coming onto you, like, it's literally never ever turned me on, and I don't know a woman who's like, oh, I love a drunk guy. And of course, if she's really drunk, this can open up a whole tin of worms, because like, let's pretend that you meet a woman, she's really drunk, you're kind of not so drunk, and then you end up approaching, you get talking, maybe you're in a bar or something like that, you have a few more drinks, she gets more and more drunk, you end up having sex, and the next day she can't even remember it, she really regrets it. It could go down like a really strange route, and you could be labeled as creepy or as something else, and you're not. And it could have been avoided if you just hadn't have gone for someone who was quite that drunk. My final point is to take a rejection like an absolute champion. Sometimes, like, no matter what we do, at some point in time, if we're putting ourselves out there, if we're approaching people, we are going to get rejected. The more you put yourself out there, the more you're going to get rejected. And the manner in which someone responds is not always in alignment to what you've actually done. Like, sometimes people will react in a way that is just unnecessary. There are women out there who have like a real like hardcore defense mechanism of like, get away from me. And to be fair, like, maybe they're like that because of the men that came before you. Maybe they're like that because they aren't a decent, nice human being. Maybe they're having like a awful time with life, and you have come up at the exact wrong moment. Maybe that has happened. But remember, it's not about you in those situations. Like, sometimes, yeah, you may have overstepped the mark, in which case you can say, hey, I know I've overstepped the mark a bit here. I'm going to leave you to your day. I hope it's a great one. Goodbye, exit. If someone's rude to you, it's really important that we do not get into an argument, even if you think that person absolutely deserves it. It's important to remember that no stranger in this world should have like a huge influence on your behavior. Someone who you do not know having an opinion about you that you don't like shouldn't upset you like deeply, and we shouldn't become reactive even if it is difficult. It is better to remove yourself from any kind of situation than stay there and have some kind of altercation or argument. I don't know, it's difficult sometimes. So to conclude, it is okay for men to approach women in 2021. However, it's important that we are mindful of the setting, of how she might be feeling, of the body language that she's giving out, and that we know when to back off. Women do want to be approached by men, but we just don't want to be harassed. It's as simple and straightforward as that. Thank you so much for watching today. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on social media at Abby Blears, and if you've got any questions, you can either drop them in the comments box or feel very welcome to put yourself in for a complimentary consultation with me, and we can discuss how to approach women in a way that works for you and is not creepy.